Hello, Sergeant Devildog here, and welcome to my latest video in my series Minecraft Trophies. Rainbow Collection is the trophy we're going for today. As you can see, only 3.5% of players playing Minecraft have earned this trophy. How do we earn the trophy? Gather all 16 colours of wool. So, colour 1 we're going for today is black. You can find black sheep wandering around in the open world. Simply shear these sheep, or we can make some black dye. To make black dye, you need to find ink sacs. To get ink sacs, we need to kill some squid. Squid are found in the ocean or in deep creeks around the map. Simply kill the squid and put the ink sac in a crafting table. This will give you your dye. Once you shear your sheep, you will have black wool. The second colour wool we're going for today is blue. You will have to dye your sheep to get blue wool. There is two ways of making blue dye. The first way is go pick cornflowers and place in your crafting table, and this will give you blue dye. The second way is go do some mining and mine some lapis lazuli ore. Once you place this ore in a crafting table, it will also give you blue dye. Once you dye your sheep, shear your sheep, and you will end up with blue wool. The third colour wool we're going for is brown wool. You can find brown wool sheep walking around the open world, or we can make brown dye. To make brown dye, we need to find cocoa beans. To find cocoa beans, you will need to go and find the jungle environment. You are looking for these trees that grow in the jungle environment. These square pods on the side of the trees will hold cocoa beans. Once you cut them down, simply take them to a crafting table, and this will give you brown dye to dye your sheep. Once you've sheared your sheep, you'll end up with our third colour wool, brown. Our fourth colour wool we're looking for is cyan. You will have to dye your sheep cyan to get cyan wool. This is what they will look like once you have dyed them. To make cyan wool, simply get blue dye and green dye and mix them, which will make the colour cyan. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have your fourth coloured wool, which is cyan. Our fifth colour wool we're going for is green wool. You will need to dye your sheep green to get green wool. How we make green wool is we need cactuses. So we need to go find the desert. Once we have found cactuses, we place these in a furnace and cook the cactus, and this will give you green dye. You can also find green dye hidden in chests throughout the desert. Simply dye your sheep green, and once you shear your sheep, you'll have your fifth colour wool green. Our sixth colour wool we're going for is grey. You can find grey sheep wandering around the open world. Simply shear these sheep, or we can make grey dye. To make grey dye, we need to place our ink sacs and white dye in our crafting table, and this will give us grey dye. Simply dye your sheep, and once you shear your sheep, you will have your grey wool. Our seventh colour we're going for is light blue wool. This is what light blue wool looks like when you dye your sheep. You will have to dye your sheep to get this colour wool. To make the dye, you simply need to blend your blue dye with white dye in a crafting table, and this will give you light blue dye, or go pick some blue orchids. These are found growing by the edge of swamps. Simply place the orchids into the crafting table, which will give you light blue dye. Use the light blue dye to dye your sheep, and once you shear your sheep, you'll have your light blue wool. Our 8th colour wool we need to get is purple wool. This is what purple wool looks like on your sheep once you have dyed them. You will need to dye your sheep to get this colour wool. To make purple dye, you need to get red dye and mix it with a blue dye in your crafting table. This will give you purple dye to use to dye your sheep. It is the only way you can get purple dye. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have purple wool. Our 9th colour wool we're going for is red wool. You will have to dye your sheep red to get red wool. There's 4 different ways of making red dye. The first way is to get poppies, red tulips, or rose bushes. You can also grow beetroot in your garden. Put any of these 4 items in your crafting table, will give you red dye. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have your 9th colour, which is red wool. Our 10th colour is yellow wool. This is what yellow wool looks like on sheep. You will need to dye your sheep yellow to get this wool. To get yellow dye, find some sunflowers or dandelion flowers. Both of these can be placed in a crafting table, which will get you yellow dye to dye your sheep with. Once you've dyed your sheep, simply shear your sheep and you'll end up with your yellow wool. The next colour wool we're going for is the easiest colour to get, which is white wool. Most of your sheep in the open world will be white. Simply shear these sheep and you'll get your 11th colour wool, or you can make white dye. There is 2 ways of making white dye. The first way is to make bone meal. To make bone meal, you need to find a garden in a village and find a composter. Simply place any type of plant material or seeds into the composter, and once it is full, it will give you a bone meal. The next way is to go and pick some lilies of the valley flowers. These are found around the open world. Place these in a crafting table and they will give you white dye. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have your 11th colour wool, white. Our 12th colour wool is pink. There are several ways of actually making pink dye. The first way is to get white dye and red dye and put in your crafting table, which will give you pink dye. The second way is to pick some peony flowers, or you can pick some pink tulips, place these 2 flowers in a crafting table, and they will give you pink dye to dye your sheep. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have your pink wool. Our 13th colour wool we're looking for is orange. To get orange wool, we can simply blend our red dye and yellow dye in the crafting table, which will give you orange dye. Or we can go find some orange tulips and place these in our crafting table to make orange dye. Then we simply need to go and dye our sheep orange, and this will get us our orange wool. This is what orange sheep look like. You will need to dye your sheep to get this colour wool. Our 14th colour wool is magenta. This is what magenta wool looks like. You will need to dye your sheep to get magenta wool. There are several ways of actually getting magenta wool. Simply blend our pink dye with our purple dye, which will get us magenta. The second way is to go pick allium flowers and place in your crafting table. And the third way is get some lilac flowers and place in your crafting table. This will both give you magenta dye, so you can dye your sheep. Once you shear your sheep, you'll have your magenta wool. Our next colour wool is our lime wool. There is two ways of making lime wool. The first way is actually blending your green dye with white dye, which will give you lime dye. The next way is to go get some sea pickles out of the ocean and actually put your sea pickles in a furnace, and once you cook them off, it will give you lime dye. Your sea pickles are what light up the area in the ocean. Once you dye your sheep green, you'll be able to go and harvest your lime wool. You will need to use lime dye to get the lime wool. This is what the sheep will look like. And we're finally up to our 16th colour, which is light grey. There are several ways of getting light grey wool. The first way is to simply get our grey dye and mix with white dye, which will give us our light grey wool. The other way to make light grey dye is go and pick three types of flower: azula bleuette, white tulips and oxeye daisies. Place these in your crafting table and they will also give you light grey dye. Once you shear your light grey sheep, this is your 16th colour and you will receive a trophy. It does not matter which order you shear your sheep to collect your wool. Once you have all 16 colours, the trophy you receive will look like this: a stack of different colour wool. If you like this video, please feel free to hit the like button on the bottom left hand corner of your screen. If you'd like to see other videos like this, please feel free to follow me or ring the bell on the bottom right hand side of your screen, or please feel free to subscribe to my channel. This will let me know the content I'm putting in my videos is what you would like to see and help my channel grow greatly. I hope you've learned how to collect all your different colour wools. Please leave a comment down below if you've actually earned this trophy or if you're going to try to earn the trophy. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.